Welcome, and thanks so much for being here with us today. I'm Sarah DeVasher Wisdom, President and CEO of Greater Louisville, Inc. One of GLI's missions is to grow the regional economy, and we do this in a number of ways, including managing the Greater Louisville Regional Partnership. The 15-county bi-state economic development initiative drives investment into the region by working with county and community partners to showcase all of our assets across the region and provide project management services to companies and consultants to make the multi-county due diligence as easy and as customer-centric as possible. Regionalism is a national best practice, and we're honored to work alongside local, county, and state officials from both Kentucky and Indiana to support and grow our economy. Ongoing collaboration and community engagement with our economic development partners is essential as we work to strengthen our region and position it for long-term sustainable growth. Community partners like One West and Republic Bank and Trust are imperative to attracting new investment, positioning existing businesses to grow and thrive, and most importantly, ensuring equitable access to opportunity. We look forward to hearing from Republic Bank and Trust and One West today. For our region to be successful, important steps must be taken to build an inclusive economy. Earlier this month, we convened our Business Council to End Racism for its inaugural meeting. This is a platform for our organization to uncover the inequities within the city and the region. We recognize that our efforts have to be dedicated to building a strong sense of belonging among diverse communities and developing dedicated strategies and business advancement opportunities for people of color. Ongoing policy work of GLI will also take on racial equity as a focus as it relates to education, workforce development and workforce barriers, healthcare access, law enforcement, and criminal justice reforms. With the help of volunteers from business leaders and various stakeholders within our community, we look forward to building consensus on the steps we have to take to achieve meaningful, impactful change in the weeks, months, and years ahead. Just this month, we released our brand new local agenda. The document represents our top policy priorities at the local level and complements GLI's efforts at the state and federal levels. Topics include major issues like public safety and criminal justice, land development, tax policy, and much more. Fortunately for GLI, some of the foundation for this work began last year as we embarked on our strategic planning process. In the coming weeks, we will officially unveil our 5-year plan, and I'm excited to share how GLI will focus on creating business advancement opportunities for underrepresented communities and how we plan to create a greater sense of belonging for professionals of color. With our renewed focus and journey to address racial inequities, we are dedicating this year's 20th anniversary of GLI to Louisville's West End as part of a hometown reflection. In October, we'll discuss economic development and workforce realities and opportunities. We'll encourage courageous conversations around equity and creating a catalyst for lasting change in the region. Additional programming details are forthcoming. And just when you think that we have enough to keep us busy, we have several timely initiatives to help our business community respond to additional important economic challenges, including a dedicated task force to help form our organization around COVID-19 recovery. We also have convened a group of industry professionals working to enhance regional land development and planning and zoning. So you can say we've been quite busy, but if anything, our work is only beginning. Any of these strategies and projects pique your interest, I urge you to connect with our team and we'll be sure to get you plugged in. As we get started today, I want to note that all participants have been muted. During today's conversation, if you would like to submit a question, please use the chat feature located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. John Launis, our Acting VP of Economic Development, will be moderating questions during the Q&A portion. So please submit your questions at any point during the presentation today. I'd now like to welcome Pedro Bryant, Executive Vice President and Managing Director of Republic Bank and Trust. Republic Bank and Trust is now in their 4th year of sponsoring this event series, and they've long been a partner of GLI in our work to grow the regional economy. Pedro, thank you for being with us here today, and thank you to Republic Bank and Trust for your support, past, present, and future. Pedro?
Thank you, Sarah. Again, my name is Pedro Bryant, and I'm with Republic Bank and Trust. We are honored to sponsor this event series for 4 years running because it aligns with our goals as a community-based bank. We believe that businesses, first and foremost, must step up to ensure economic equality for everyone in our community. This is why we will be launching a $3 million community loan fund for businesses seeking loans up to $50,000. These loan funds will help support small businesses and promote business development and job creation in communities impacted by inequity and inadequate access to capital. I am hopeful that participants attending this event, particularly residents and business owners, will be able to identify 2 or 3 action items that can be addressed over the next 12 months that can lead to long-term community transformation. I am now honored today to introduce Yvonne Smith, President of One West. I'm going to go off script for just about 30 seconds. Last year, I had the opportunity to travel with Yvonne to North Carolina, Winston-Salem, to visit the community where she has done a lot of work. I am really honored to be here today and to introduce her because I got to see Yvonne in her own element, and she has brought that same level of energy to Louisville, Kentucky. Yvonne is a real estate developer with more than 20 years of experience and joined One West as president and CEO in January of 2018. Yvonne is the founding president of Sustainable Community Resources, a real estate development firm with offices in Winston-Salem and Greensboro, North Carolina, that specializes in rural and urban real estate development in low to moderate resource communities. She is a partner on the $100 million mixed-use South Elm Street redevelopment project, now Union Square, in Greensboro. And she led redevelopment of the historic Goler Heights neighborhood in downtown Winston-Salem. That project included construction of more than 20,000 square feet of commercial and retail space and more than 200 new housing units. Yvonne earned a bachelor's in business administration from Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina, and completed executive leadership programs at Duke and Harvard universities. He also served 10 years on the North Carolina State Association of Community Development Corporations Board, the North Carolina Department of Transportation Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Advisory Board, and the Downtown Winston-Salem Partnership Real Estate Committee. As president and CEO, Yvonne is directing the implementation of One West 5-year strategic plan, which includes commercial and mixed-use development efforts beginning at the 18th Street and West Broadway corridor. Continuing the work that One West board and volunteers have already begun, Yvonne is building relationships with government, nonprofit, business and community organizations, and acts as an advocate for responsible investment, financial commitments, and policies that impact West Louisville. Yvonne, thanks so much for all the critical work and conversations that you're leading. We're honored to have you join us here today to share more about the mission and services of One West and how we can all support you. The floor is now yours.
Thank you so much, Pedro. I am absolutely honored to have you introduce me in such a beautiful way. I will make one correction that I had shut down my businesses in North Carolina. I am totally focused on Louisville, and I am pleased and honored to be with you all today. I just have to say, I have to really give greetings from the board of directors for One West, which was started in 2014 as a program of Leadership Louisville in the Bingham Fellows class of 2014. This board was developed to basically address the issues of economic isolation of the West End from the rest of the city. And they did that and came to the conclusion as to what we would focus on as a result of a 3-year listening tour that they went on to understand what the needs were that from the West End residents. We are headed by our illustrious chairwoman, Ms. Nikki Lanier, and the focus that One West has brought to economic development for the West End has been on paramount. it has really been extremely important work, and the board is comprised of about almost 31 leaders from across the city, but having representation of all 9 neighborhoods, residents from all 9 neighborhoods of the West End have a seat on the board. And One West is in its 5th year of operation. And one of the things that we are so excited about is this idea that the issue of economic justice being a widespread conversation around the city and the country. And it is so important because, as I mentioned, One West started this conversation and bringing people from different races and different cultures together in 2014 to begin to do this heavy lift of how do we help this area of the city enjoy the same level of vibrancy and economic vitality that the rest of the city is enjoying. And so they did that by coming together and having some hard conversations, bringing their own baggage to the table and working through issues collectively. And that was not without its growing pains. People had many perceptions demolished, and they had to rebuild their perception of culture and people and places collectively as a result. But one of the things that I am extremely proud of is that 90% of the board is still at the table. They met every week, every Thursday at 8 a.m. for basically 5 years in order to ensure that they did the work, the deep dive of getting to know not only the community, but getting to know each other and doing the heavy lift of understanding the issues that have allowed the West End to get into or to become what it is today. Now you've got a beautiful tapestry of residential properties, as well as some of the most beautiful historic properties known in the city. Why wouldn't this area be one of the most developed and productive areas of the city? Well, as we all know, it's a product of a lot of the systemic issues and barriers that have been pronounced all around the country. So we knew we had a lot of work to do. I was very grateful in 2017 when One West did their national search and landed on me in North Carolina. And I have been very grateful since being here in Louisville, understanding not only is it a beautiful tapestry of history in the West End, but also it is comprised of some of the most wonderful people you ever did want to meet. And across our city, we have seen so many people interested in leaning in and learning about how we can change the current environment to be one of a positive and forward-thinking experience, so that we can attract the kind of retail and commercial that the residents have said they wanted, but then also so that we can collectively grow West End businesses and people who want to have businesses, grow them in the areas in which they would like to locate. I say that because having done it for almost 30 years now and having a banking background, I know that it is a comprehensive process. So with that, I'm going to do my best this morning to try to explain what we're working on and help everyone to kind of get a real understanding for how this work is done. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. One of the most important things that we try to help everyone understand is this is a very large area. It is approximately 350 city blocks. The West End and the 9 neighborhoods that we focus on are approximately 350 city blocks comprised of a little over 60,000 people. We have over 4,000 vacant and abandoned and blighted properties in the area. And so there's a lot of room for opportunity. We also have very limited retail in the area, very limited medical resources, and quite a host of things that need to be worked on. One of the very important things for people to see is we have done through the listening sessions, One West learned that most of the West End residents consider West Broadway to be the commercial corridor, the main commercial corridor, and it is a link, the main corridor link into downtown. So with that, we understand that there's quite a bit of transit that occurs in the area. If you look on this map, you'll see how the West End flows into downtown and all of the affluency that goes with the downtown area. There has to be a way to afford West End residents to be able to tap into those other retail aspects, as well as to get some of those retail amenities in the West End. So that's what One West is working on. The other thing is we were very careful not to just go out and improve buildings and improve the environment with solely placemaking and commercial development. What we understand is community, and the community economic development phrase is the most important part of that phrase. So for us, it was very important to identify community members that can participate on these projects. So we did the deep dive of finding the contractors, the design firms, and ultimately the supply side folks from the community that could work on these projects, as well as looking at minority contractors across the city that could potentially work on the projects, and how could we help to enhance their experience. Now, that's not to say that we would do this work without majority-owned firms. When you start this level of community economic development, usually the rising tide lifts all boats. If you have that amount, the totality of the square footage of the West End up for revitalization, you have a whole lot of opportunities. The other challenge is, as with the building I'm showing you now, One West purchased this building in 2018, and it's comprised of a series of buildings actually. With this project, what we learned is that there was a significant amount of issues associated with the project. There were tenants in the buildings that needed their buildings to have air conditioning. There was termite infestation. There were rodent issues. We had leaky roofs. We had insulation sitting on top of electrical wiring. We had exposed wiring. We also had the facial part of the building separating from the base. So there were a number of things that One West had to deal with on the front end. Our first year, we invested over $67,000 into this building to just get it where it was functioning safely for the tenants that were there. We had a number of, we actually have a beautiful community of a multicultural community of tenants in this building. So we had 9 tenants that represented people from Africa, people from Asia. We had African-American businesses there, and we had white-owned businesses there. And everybody has been functioning as a community, and it has been working for them. Some of my tenants were grossing $10,000 a month in that space, and that was great for them. So they were very reluctant to move out of the space due to those issues, but they definitely needed someone who could come in and make the improvements so they could afford to continue to operate and make money and be able to affect change with their community and their families. So this has been an important economic generator for the businesses that are located here. Also, we purchased this blue building here, and then this burgundy building here. In the burgundy building, we found, upon purchasing it, we did a structural analysis and had a structural engineer take a look, and we found that in that building, the tenant was without water for the past 15 years. So there were no bathroom services in this building, and there were some structural soundness concerns. So we're working on getting the funds to renovate this building so that we can get it whipped into shape for the tenant that's in there. And the other idea is to open up what used to be the second commercial space back here, retail space. We want to open that back up. And as you can see, this building has significant historical attributes that we would like to keep in the community. The price tag on just that project alone is upwards of 250, it could be 252, over $300,000. And the reason is because of the historic fabric, because of the lack of maintenance, because of the structural issues, that type of project takes a lot of investment. When we talk about ownership for the small business, many times the small business owner in their first 1 to 3 years can't afford to purchase a building. A lot of times they're spending that time just getting their business up and running and getting brand awareness and building their clientele. Usually from the 3 to 6 year mark is when they start looking at, hey, does it make sense to purchase something and begin to build assets that way. A lot of times, and I'm going back on my banking history here, a lot of times they need to find places that they can get in initially, maybe lease. Nothing wrong with getting a lease option if they can do so. And One West is trying to make that a possibility for many businesses. But we have to meet those businesses where they are and work with them on their vision, not on what we think is best. So with that, I would like to show you this next project, which is the 18th Street row houses. So for those of you that are from Louisville, you're aware of New Lou and Bardstown Road and other areas that have taken shotgun homes and developers have turned them into retail establishments. Well, on South 18th Street, these homes were vacant, abandoned. Usually the grass was overgrown in the area. And a lot of times homeless people would squat in these homes. Well, that could be extremely dangerous in some cases. And what One West did is purchase these homes, and we're going to make them an extension of the Chef Space incubator so that chefs will now have a place to kick off their first retail location. They will lease the spaces and we will help them with marketing, help them get established. And then we anticipate that they will operate out of these spaces from about 6 months to a year. And then they will move into their first permanent retail space. But the idea is to give them a chance to launch without all of the significant overhead that comes with the startup of a new restaurant. So we're anticipating that the vision would be this look here, where we would renovate those spaces and create an outdoor dining space with the lot that we purchased next to these buildings. But we're working with Chef Space so that their chefs will no longer have to be trained and leave the West End, but actually have spaces in the West End where they can test their brand, they can build their brand, and hopefully locate in the West End. That was one of the priority items that the community told us they wanted to see, which is sit-down restaurants close to home. And we'd like to make that happen. Further in our quest to create more retail in the corridor, we're looking at this space here. We actually purchased this building, and this is part of our wealth creation strategy. For those of you that are familiar with Sweet Peaches Restaurant, you know that Pam Haynes owns this restaurant here. We purchased this building so that Pam would not lose the opportunity to expand her restaurant into a sit-down restaurant, family style, right behind her current location. So we are helping Pam with, she has a purchase agreement. We're helping her with identifying resources that could help her with the renovation of this space and then ultimately get her moved into here. She has been leasing, subleasing the spaces upstairs, which help her to pay for the building. This has been a win-win. Pam had paid for this building, had been leasing it for 2 years. The owners needed to sell. She came to her local community development corporation and said, hey, can you help me? This has been a win-win because we want to keep her in the community and help her realize her vision. And this space is a great space to continue her legacy. Just for those of you that don't know, this is South 18th Street and Muhammad Ali, right across from the African American Center here. And then also it's adjacent to the Russell Apartments, which are right here. As a result of the combined coordination between Louisville Forward and One West, Louisville Forward is now committing resources to get the infrastructure improved in the area. So the sidewalk scenario that you see here is about to get an overhaul and get improved. There are going to be more trees added. The curbs are going to be improved. You're going to see more spaces for parking with bump outs, permanent bump outs that are going to make it very defined. And we will enhance the investment that the city has made in the lily pad, which is an outdoor dining space here. And the 2 row houses are right here. So all of this is going to happen comprehensively, and we are very excited about it. The other thing I want you to see is that One West participated in the Congress for New Urbanism design charrettes, and we had over 200 participants from the community come out to help design what they wanted to see. And we're always very adamant to get residents from the area, as many as we can, out to participate in anything that we're about to do or that we're thinking of doing, to make sure that we do what the community says they're interested in seeing happen, and they support any of the positive initiatives that are responsive to their desires and their needs. As a result, this is the plan that came out of the charrette process, and we've been very excited about implementing this. This is the corner where Sweet Peaches is. This is the building we purchased behind it. And then the 2 row houses are right here, just to give you context. And then this is Chef Space right here, which is currently up and running. For those of you that don't know, Lucretia's restaurant, she operates out of Chef Space. This building here would be a new building on the New Direction site, and we are open to assisting there wherever we can. And then this would be a new building on this site here, which is currently a city-owned site. So that's just the initial projects that we have that we're looking at. The next one would be 526 South 18th Street. This building has been sitting abandoned for over 10 years. It has structural issues. It is a historic property. We're looking at over $400,000 on the price tag to rehab this building. We have an end tenant that would like to go into this building, so we're actively in the process of raising money for all of these initiatives, because as you all know, they will take a significant heavy lift to get those buildings in good condition and good shape for our tenants. Now, in some cases, like I told you, there's a wealth creation strategy, and it makes sense for the tenant to actually purchase the building. In those cases, we're trying to help get those buildings into good shape for those tenants so that they can ultimately be successful. This project here is owned by HPI. One West invested in this building over $300,000 to help get this building renovated. This is 1405 West Broadway. This has been an eyesore for over 20 years, and it took a number of attempts to try to purchase this building to get it in community-friendly hands. Right now, we're looking at a number of uses for this building, and One West was critical in helping HPI get site control over the land behind it so that they could ultimately have parking. That was a very critical aspect, because a lot of times developers or new developers want to go in and do projects, but sometimes they don't know to look for the parking, because that could limit the type of tenant you get. Sometimes they don't know to look for the environmental challenges that may exist on a project, because that could impact your development budget significantly. There are just a number of things. So we bring that technical know-how to the table and are trying to work with our local community developers to try to mitigate those risks. We also have been working with Simmons College of Kentucky to try to help them identify resources for student housing. That's something that is currently stalled because of COVID. So we'll look to see where we can go with that going forward, as right now most schools are not doing in-class type of training. So we'll education. So we'll continue to have that discussion. This is the One West office. This is where we're located. We have been there for over 3 years. The goal at this time is to try to work with Passport to get site control so that we can, we have an end tenant for this project. And that again plays into what the community has asked for. So we're actively trying to obtain control of this entire site to do a project that we know the community is excited to see. We're thinking a family sit-down restaurant, and we have an exciting end tenant. We've just been waiting to get the all clear from Passport. We were most recently able to help a community partner here, which is the Shawnee Christian Healthcare. They received over $300,000 grant from the federal government to expand their dental clinic. They do a tremendous job for the community, and One West stepped outside of our corridor plan in order to help them, because we wanted to make sure they could secure architects and secure their budget for this project. And they allowed us to work with them, and we were able to do that. And now they're off and running. They're in the construction phase, and we secured a wonderful architect, and this project we expect will be complete by the end of October. Now, the last piece I will tell you about is One West has also started a plan room, and the plan room is to help local contractors, minority contractors, design firms, and supply side folks to have a landing spot where they can get critical information on upcoming opportunities, as well as they could get training for their businesses to help advance and grow their businesses. And it is important because we know that if these businesses do well, we are in the very early stages of beginning to create the next wave of community wealth building. And so we think this is extremely important, and we are happy to have partners like 7 p.m., LCCC, the state of Kentucky, U of L has been a tremendous partner, and many others. This is going to be phenomenal for not only One West, but for the minority contracting community and the West End. We are also working diligently to create equitable policies around tenancy, just to make sure that as small businesses come to the table to locate in some of our spaces, we're putting measures in place so that when you have situations where people have had tremendous barriers to being able to have a small business, where we will work actively to help remove the barriers so that they can have locations from which to operate, and so that we can help them with their growth plans. We know emphatically that when you've had a system whereby people have been marginalized, we've got to then do something different to help them be included and to be successful. Some of the things that we're looking at in the range of economic parity is to just look at what some of those barriers have been. If people come to the table with bad credit, we look at what is the reason, what is the situation, how can we help them overcome those issues? And I will say, predatory lending has been extremely widespread in the West End. Not only has it been predatory lending, but there have been predatory practices. So if you have people who are paying 3 times the insurance, if you have people that have had erroneous fees charged against them for taxes by a third party on their properties, if you have people who have experienced predatory practices relative to furniture purchases and other things, it is very hard for them to get to the table with the kind of credit that maybe someone else has who hasn't been subjected to those practices. So we have to look at things differently in order to help folks be a part of the process of economic vitality. So I will just take my hat off to One West. I am still just as excited and amazed by the board as I was when they recruited me. And I love the West End and the people. I love the city of Louisville. And we have a lot to be proud of. And the more we build bridges, the more we will solve our economic problems and injustices. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Yvonne. It's pretty impressive. I think many of the folks on the call remember when One West was launched through the Bingham Fellows process. I know I remember when they hit that huge milestone of recruiting you into the market. And so to be here today to hear about all of the great work and momentum that you have, it's really impressive. So I'll kind of start in that and say that you came to our community with an impressive background in commercial real estate development and community building. Your efforts in Winston-Salem and Greensboro, North Carolina continue to obviously positively impact the residents, the neighborhoods, and really even that region and that regional brand. Could you share a little bit more about some of the long-term community level impacts that those projects are having in that community, and then maybe how that translates over to help your team to inform and envision a lot of the work that you're doing in the West End now?
Absolutely. One of the things that I think was so prevalent in my mind about all of this is the work that we did in Winston-Salem is not unlike West Louisville in its position to downtown. The area, the Goler area, was right there adjacent to downtown. As a matter of fact, we got what is called the CBD expanded to include our area. So that's the Central Business District. We dealt with the one-way streets and had to have them turned into two-way streets in order to begin the flow of traffic, such that people would not just use the streets as a quick getaway out of the area. They began to be able to turn in and out of businesses very comfortably. We also were able to galvanize federal, state, local philanthropic resources and private investment into the area. Once we dealt with the crime issues, we dealt with the vagrancy, we dealt with a lot of the homelessness. As we did that collectively, we were able to then do the revitalization comfortably, but we also worked very strategically on the minority contractor piece. And so we were able to marry majority firms to minority firms and got them working together. When you control $50 million in projects, you can have a different conversation with folks. And then when we saw local city government coming to the table as well, and then federal contracts, we were able to encourage folks, hey, listen, the diversity and inclusion is everywhere. It starts on every single level. And that made a very big impact. We have in Winston-Salem a senior housing project with 79 units of senior housing directly across the street from a high-end apartment rehab of an old tobacco building, very similar to the project I just showed you at 1405 West Broadway. And they coexist comfortably together. And so the seniors on that HUD 202 project can have zero income and live in that building. And they've got a $5,000 chandelier in the lobby of that building. They have a billiards room. They have a multi-purpose room. They have a computer lab, all those things in place. And you can do it when you're intentional and collaborative. I will say one of the things I'm very proud of, John, is that the building that the nonprofit is in, the way we did the capital stack on that building is we got 0% money brought in from Federal Home Loan Bank, deposited at BB&T, allowed BB&T to loan it back to us at 2% interest, had a market rate tenant located in the building. So now the nonprofit never has to pay rent if they so choose. And we got a 15-year lease agreement. That one, I think, was a coup for all time because it's important for a nonprofit to be able to be self-sustainable. And that was one way that we did it.
That's awesome. Yeah, win-win-wins. Those are always popular. You've touched on this a little bit, but we did get a pretty direct question. So I want to allow you an opportunity to maybe articulate this again, because I know it's an important objective here. And there's several comments and just giving a lot of kudos to the work going on. But one of them to kind of just directly ask, how are these projects helping to create more jobs? Are they helping to create more contract opportunities for minority business enterprises, specifically for individuals within the West End?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I touched on was the number of businesses that want to locate in the West End or that are there but can't afford to improve the properties that they're in, or a business that wants to locate there but can't take on the cost to improve some of those historic structures or some of the properties. It's one thing to acquire a building, it's another thing to have the budget for rehab, and then it's another thing to be able to fund the operations of your business. So if a business is taxed with all of that right on the front end, a lot of times they just won't take it on, especially if they could go to the East End and get a reasonable lease agreement that's going to give them time to prove their business model. So we've got to be very intentional about helping those businesses to locate in the spaces in the West End. And then on top of that, as they locate there and they hire, we're looking for as many as possible to hire from the West End, because we have a large population of people waiting to go to work. And so we want to encourage that. And what that does by those businesses locating in the West End, that cuts down on the transportation challenges that some of our folks may have. We are working with TARC very closely to try to help people have easy access to work. But as you all know, if you have kids, it's very difficult to, one, get your kids in place, then you take the bus and get to work, and then ultimately any of the errands you may need to run, that presents another challenge. If you have to go grocery shopping and that sort of thing, that presents a challenge. So we want to help as much as possible remove some of those barriers. But as many businesses as we can get in the West End and the West End businesses that we can grow, we're hoping time and time again, they look to the West End for the labor force that they need. And that is happening. So we're excited about that.
That's great. You know, we've talked a lot about community building, community economic development, and I love that emphasis. I don't know too many people that would disagree that that's an important emphasis that we need to continue to make and integrate into our strategies and our model. And for several years, One West has hosted community conversations to give area residents an opportunity to ask questions and to provide that kind of critical, direct input on planned projects that are within their neighborhoods and their community. Could you talk a little bit more about these forums, what role they play in community economic development, and how you utilize it as a tool or a resource in your work? And then maybe the second piece of that question is, we've got a lot of community partners and economic development partners on the call today. How might they be able to utilize or learn from this approach?
Well, I will say that a lot of the community partners have actually been collaborators with us throughout the whole time that I've been in Louisville. So we do a lot of collaboration and supporting each other. I can't say enough about New Directions, Black CDC, Rebound, and LIBA, Dream Team, that we're learning from each other. And I will also, I have to throw in there Reverend Jameson and the work that she's done, because she's truly been a pioneer on the economic development front in Louisville. And then Janetta Robinson and the work she's done has just been amazing. So Molo Village is another project that's coming out of the ground. And all of us have been supportive of one another. I will say that we do the community conversations quarterly. And what's important about that is we just believe that we don't want the community to be the last one to know when something is being planned or when there's going to be a project in their neighborhood. We are actually encouraging developers, hey, listen, you can actually come and present to the community your idea, or if you need to keep your idea kind of under wraps until you lock it all down, you can come to the community and actually have a concept discussion. It's important because you want the community support for anything you're going to do in their neighborhood. And so we encourage that. I will tell you that Waterfront Park was a very good partner over the course of the last year and a half. They came to the community, presented their ideas for expansion, and listened to the community around what any expansion into the West End could and should look like. And so they incorporated many of the ideas that they heard, and they didn't just come one time. They continued to come and talk with the community so that whatever they decide to ultimately do, they have that feedback and they can incorporate things that the community deems valuable.
Great. Pedro, I don't want to catch you off guard here, but I hope you don't mind if I pose a question over to you as well. We've got one that came in, obviously related to the recent announcement of Republic's $3 million community loan fund. Could you talk a little bit about the process and this decision? Was this kind of a long time coming for Republic? This is a large investment. So just want to give you an opportunity talk a little bit about Republic's mindset here.
Well, this, the idea for the loan fund, Steve Traeger shared with me immediately after I came on board. And the bank is committed. The statements that I made earlier about inaccess or inequity, in access to capital and equity, some of the same challenges that Yvonne spoke about, we believe that we can address collectively, working with small business owners and others in the community to provide opportunity to those who want to start a business. Some of the same entrepreneurs that Yvonne spoke about, wanting to start a business and wanting to test their brand, this would be ideal. You know, over the last couple of months, because of COVID, if you visit any of the home supply companies, they're out of supplies because people are doing a lot of projects at home. Electricians, plumbers, HVAC people, restaurant owners, people looking to purchase equipment, inventory, or start a small business. I think it's an ideal fit for those persons. And I'd love to continue these conversations and have a conversation with Yvonne and One West and others who are interested in promoting economic growth and development in West Louisville.
Yeah, follow up on that one, Pedro, just kind of recognizing Republic Bank's multi-state footprint here. Could you talk a little bit about some of the criteria for the program, whether it's geographical or other, maybe initial kind of focuses of the loan program as you get it off the ground?
A very good question, because we've had that question internally posed to us as well. We're going to start this here in Louisville first. And we'll tell you this, we're going to roll this out hopefully within the next 24 hours, but we're going to start here in Louisville. And once we are established here in Louisville, we're going to roll it out to the other markets where we have a presence.
Great. Thank you, Pedro. Yvonne, back over to you real quick. I'm curious, obviously you have been an early supporter and champion for the $50 million Louisville Urban League Sports and Learning Complex that I know the entire community is really excited about. Could you talk a little bit maybe about some of the associated kind of opportunities and ripple effects to our local community, the city and the region on such a large scale project in the West End?
I think that we have been actually excited about all of the announcements that have been coming out around projects in the West End. I think that the Sports and Learning Center, you know, Norton has made a tremendous commitment. One of the most exciting things I think about it is the healthcare components that they're going to offer in the community, as well as the heavy lift that the Urban League has made to make that project happen. But we also are very excited about the commitment of some of the corporations that are coming to the area, like New Directions making their new headquarters in the community, as well as Goodwill coming to the community and what they're doing. We love the beautification of the Levy building on West Broadway. All those things are helping, but we want to make sure, and as much as possible, there are more initiatives coming to the area that are going to hire local folks. That is extremely important. And so we also want to make sure we get our businesses prepared for all the new people that are coming into the area to go to work. That's going to be an opportunity for business owners. So we want to make sure that they're getting their brands out there and they're marketing to those folks. So there's a lot of opportunity both ways, but we definitely are looking at companies that are going to, one, do their developments with West End businesses, hiring our minority contractors on their projects, ensuring that there's ownership from the executive suite around breaking up their projects so that small business owners can play a role. That's extremely important. If you've got a large contract and it's something that can be broken up, we want to encourage that to happen where we have availability. We're not talking about, hey, if you got a large paint contract and we don't have paint manufacturers, that's different, or paint distributors, that's different. But if you do and we have them locally, let's try and as much as we can to promote local as much as possible, in our MBE community is extremely important. When I say that, that's minority business enterprises.
You're so right on. I think that shift from philanthropic dollars to operational dollars and how companies and organizations are able to target and utilize those can have a tremendous external impact. So I think one of our final questions here, we actually got one from a panelist related to opportunities for individual investors to participate and to support. So I don't want to lose that, but I'm going to fold it in to kind of a larger question for you as we close up here. And that's that, we are very fortunate to have a lot of our partners, whether business partners or economic development partners, on a call with us today. And I just want to kind of maybe very directly ask the question of how can we be better advocates, whether again, we work directly in economic development, or whether we're a company or an individual that wants to support this critical work and be a part of the solution to foster change within, again, their organization or their personal network, or whether their family household. I'll kind of turn it back over to you to broadly answer that question on how we can all engage.
Sure. So one thing is definitely shoot us an email. We'd love to have a conversation with anyone that wants to get involved. We are currently doing a capital campaign for 10 million. We're halfway through it. We're looking for additional investment. It helps us to do the work we're trying to do. The other thing is we are only focused on commercial and retail development. We don't do residential unless we have a mixed use project. There are many residential developers in the area, and I want people to know that not only are there nonprofit developers, but there are African Americans doing a lot of development in the West End. And so we invite people to get involved and to also take a look at talking with Louisville Forward and the different projects that are available. Don't be afraid to take a look at the VAP, vacant and abandoned properties list. Those are opportunities as well. We focus on capacity, engagement, retail and commercial development, and advocacy. Get involved with us on that advocacy side, because we don't want the development to kick off and we not have addressed the gentrification concerns of the community. We don't want development to happen absent the advocacy that needs to happen to get policies in place where there will not be forced displacement of the existing residents. Again, we don't do residential, but we want developers who do it to not, in their effort to improve the environment, to not cause a situation where people are going to be forced to leave their homes. So we can put policy in place. There are enough models across the country. So we just need to get that piece locked down. And we are working with senators across the aisle as a result of John McCarthy's efforts. We're working with senators on policy like that, but sign on to that. Let us know you're interested in being a part of that advocacy, because it's very important. And folks can reach out to us at info@onewest.org.
That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of great information. Yeah, thank you again, Yvonne. I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah to officially close this out, but I've really enjoyed the conversation with both you and Pedro.
Thank you, John, for having me.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Yvonne and Pedro, and both the One West and the Republic Bank teams for the presentation today. I found it very insightful and very informative, and we're extremely lucky to have you as partners. For our guests, we hope you enjoyed the conversation as well and found it enlightening. We want to remind you about a few upcoming events, including one on August 25th, in which we will talk about overcoming racial equity in business. This will be about inclusion in business enterprises and talent. It will feature the Cincinnati Minority Business Accelerator. We also have our Business at Breakfast in the afternoon coming up on September 14th. This is presented by LG&E KU. And this is where we will unveil our strategic plan. So stay tuned for all of the details from that plan. Please join us on September 14th. We also have our Capital Connections event with Kentucky Secretary of State Michael Adams, presented by Norton Healthcare on September 23rd. And as I mentioned earlier, Glide West Inn, presented by SKO on October 18th. And that goes through the 20th, in which we will be visiting many of the areas that we talked about. So please join us. Thank you again for joining us today, and hope you have a wonderful afternoon.